Hello and welcome to the webcast. My name is John Carlson and I'm the Director of Services at RAND 3D. Today our webcast is making sense of V5, V6 and the transition to the 3D experience. Over the last couple of years, Dassault Systems has been making changes to their CATIA products, introducing new versions V6 and also the 3D experience. And so we want to go through and discuss this transition and then what does it mean for people that are currently using V5. And then hopefully clear up any confusion that you may have. Now our topics today, first of all, we'll go through and look at the Dassault System brand offerings and just how they fit into this 3D experience that we're talking about. Also, we're going to go through and talk a little bit about how the 3D experience will actually change then 3D design. We're also going to go through and talk about a few new terms then that will get introduced with the 3D experience. And then we'll take a quick look at just the future of V5. This software will continue on for quite a while, and we'll go through and discuss, what is the future of that software and my transition forward. And then also compatibility between the data of V5 and the 3D experience. What is my compatibility possibilities there? We'll look at that as well. And then also the new licensing scheme that goes along with the software. How is it the same? How is it different than the current V5 licensing scheme? And then we're also going to go through and review the possible implementation methods for the new software. On-premise versus an on-cloud installation, what are my possibilities there? And then at the end, I'll also give you a quick demonstration of the software just to show you the new look and feel. Now, one thing I do promise is I will keep it simple as we go along. This is meant to go through and be a high-level overview of how these different softwares fit together with each other. I don't want to get into all the workings in the background that make the 3D experience work. Now, if you decide to go forward with the 3D experience, eventually we'll talk about how that all works together. But that's not going to go through and be today's discussion. Now, Dassault Systems. They are the creator of the software. And so I want to go through and just discuss a little bit about the company and also kind of what they see as their vision going forward for the product. Now you'll notice they're starting to call themselves the 3D Experience Company. 3D has existed for quite a while in CAD, but it probably started with the CAD designer and it probably ended with him as well. There wasn't really much usage of the 3D information once it had been created on the engineering side. With the 3D experience, they're trying to bring this information to everybody in the company. So purchasing, marketing, even high-level management. They want to give them access to look then at this information and be able to make better decisions going forward. Now the company itself, it was founded in 1981. It's focused on 12 industries, and we'll take a look at those industries in just a second. They've got 210,000 customers worldwide, 10 million different users, so very large software company, 15,000 employees all over the world, and then last year they had 3.1 billion in revenue. Now out of all those statistics, the one that sticks out the most to me is the 30% investment on R&D. So this is a company that's very focused for developing new software then for the 3D experience. There's no other software manufacturer out there right now that I know of that's spending anywhere near that amount of money going forward. Now, the different industries that Dassault Systems focuses on. Aerospace and defense, they're very big in that particular area. Also transportation and mobility. They've got different areas here again for consumer goods, marine and offshore. They're all kind of engineering-based areas. So it's an engineering company, and that is their focus with the 3D Experience platform. Now, the 3D Experience platform is represented in all their software by the compass that you see here in the center. And the compass is the tool that you can use to actually access the different applications inside of the experience. And so over here on the left side of our compass, or basically the west side, we've got the 3D modeling apps. And then under this 3D modeling app area, that's where I could go through and access CATIA. I could also access SolidWorks, Geovia, and Beovia as well, if I had to go through and use those apps to create my geometry. Now at the top of the compass, or the north, we've got our social and collaborative apps. If you were to pick on that part of the compass, it would now go through and bring up the Inovia and also the 3D Excite choices. And that's how I would access then those areas of the software. Now if I was to come over to the right hand side of my compass, or basically the east, that would let me go through and access my information intelligence apps. So if I wanted to get into Exalead, which is basically a database search engine, or if I wanted to get into NetVibes, I could go through and access it through that area. And at the very bottom of the compass, or the south side of the compass, is our content and simulation apps. And so there I can access my Delmia products inside the software. I can also access Simulia and then also 3D Via as well. So this compass really is kind of the starting point to access all the information in the 3D experience. Again, I have broken these brands down here a little bit more on the next couple pages. So, they go through and talk about Novia. It's the collaborative innovation. So that's where you're going to go through and have your different change management information. You'll take care of it in that area there. Of course, the 3D modeling apps, that's where they actually go through and create the physical products. Under those areas, you're also going to have, again, your content and simulation apps down below. So again, if you want to do a structural analysis, that's where I would go down to those areas to find it. And then again, your information intelligence apps, you do have the Exalead, which is basically a search engine for searching information in your database. And then you've also, again, got the NetVibes to go through and make different dashboards that will display different information to different people that need to access this. So those are the 11 brands then that Dassault Systems creates. Now, they're all going to be built on this 3D Experience platform. So the 3D Experience platform is basically where all the information will go through and get stored. And then all these different brands can all access this information. So they're going to be stored in a file format that all the brands understand. So this data is going to be usable across all of them, is the eventual goal. Now, the platform itself, again, it's broken into brands. You can use the compass to go through and access the brands. So again, if I wanted to start up CATIA and actually model a 3D part, I could come over and hit the 3D button in the compass, and it would bring up a list of the different, what they call apps. And then from that app list, I could come down and say, okay, I want to go through and do part design, or maybe I want to come over and do a sheet metal design. You would pick the appropriate apps. Now, some of these apps are thin client, and some of them are thick client. Now, if it's a thin client app, there's no software loaded on your computer. When you come over and pick on the button, it's simply going to go through and take you to that area through the web to access that information. Now, if it's a thick client app, then it's actually going to start some software that has been loaded on your local computer. If you're going to go through and use CATIA, that would basically be an example of a thick client app. You need software loaded to make that work. But if you're going to come over and do something in Novia, you don't have to go through and load any software. That would be an example of a thin client. So I just gave you some pictures down below here of some of the different possible apps you would go through and find. Now, they're calling them apps in the 3D Experience platform. If you're in V5, an app is the equivalent of a workbench. I'm in the part design workbench. I'm in the assembly design workbench. You're going to have an equivalent app then in the 3D Experience platform to do the same thing. Now, there are a lot of apps in the 3D Experience platform. In 2017X, there's over 400 of them. In 2018, which is already out, there's even more. So there's a lot of different apps then, so they've got a very wide breadth of functionality within the 3D Experience platform. But it can all be accessed again from that compass. And then we want to kind of go through and review, why the platform? How did we get here? So I want to go back and just kind of review before the platform existed, how you went through and basically worked. Now, the first method is non-PLM Kit. And so this is what a lot of companies still use today, especially if they're smaller companies. You've got a user, he works on his local computer, he modifies his information there, and he saves onto that local computer. Or maybe it's some type of shared drive that other people in the company can then access, once he's saved it there. Now, with this particular method, though, there's no version control, there's no type of data backup unless you've maybe got an IT department that's, really into that, or you do it yourself. And so it works, but it really only works well if it's really small. You, or maybe you and just a couple other people. If you've got hundreds of users, this presents lots of problems on here. So then, in the last 15 years, they started to transition into what they would call PLM Kit, Product Lifecycle Management Kit. Now, with this particular data method, you would have basically a central then go through and put your information in that central file vault. And then the users can go through and access that information in the file vault. So they could check the data out onto their local computer. They would still make the modifications on their local computer. And then when they were done, they would go through and check it back in. And then once it was checked in, other users can now go through and view that information that they checked back into the database. So with that, it has quite a few advantages. So again, I've got, version history. I know who changed that document and when. I have change controls, who can access the data, who cannot access the data. You've got automatic backups being created by the PLM system. And they're also going to go through and have viewer tools for the non-CAD users. So I don't have to necessarily open up the information in the native software. I could use the viewer tools then to view the drawings or the parts and assemblies that I'm interested in. So that was the PLM Kit on here. And then the data-based CAD, or the 3DEXPERIENCE. What they're going to have again is in the center, you're going to have your 3DEXPERIENCE platform where all your information is going to go through and be stored. And then to go through and access that data, now we're going to go through and use the various apps. So again, it could be a CATIA app. It could go through and be an Inovia app. It could even be some type of other CAD system. So I put over here on the right, XCAD. If you go through and use some other CAD system besides CATIA, they are going through and making interfaces to go through and still let you put that information inside. And so sometime in 2018, they should have one for Creo, and they should also have one for NX as well. I don't know the exact dates since I don't represent Dassault Systems, but there's going to be other software that you can access through the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. Now again, the users then go through and access the data and make the changes with the apps. Now you look at that and go, well, John, that's pretty much exactly what you got back here with the PLM CAD as well. I got the central database, I access it, I put it back in when I'm done. The difference is going to be file-based versus basically platform-based information. If I come back over here to the PLM CAD, I go through and I check my CAD model in, and it's got like a CAD part extension on it. So again, I can then go through and open that product up or that particular item, and again, V5 on another computer. It's, a file though that I'm going through and saving into the system on here. And so I can access that file. Over here in the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, you're not really saving a file into the system. You are going through and saving the data, but it's into a relational database. So there's other ways to search and use this information than just opening the file. Back over here under the PLM method, I would, let's say I want to go through and structurally analyze the part that I just created. I may have to go through and take that out of the database onto a different computer. It may have to convert the data into another format that that system understands. I run my structural analysis, it gives me data back, but can I put that information back into the PLM system? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But then once you stick it back in, how is it related to that CAD model when you're finished? And so to come back later then with file-based information, you need to know the file, or you have to make some type of manual link between these. Whereas if I go through and use the relational database method, the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, these links are being established in the background. It's kind of like here, with the PLM method, it's like a phone book. If I go through and give you somebody's name and hand you a phone book, you can easily go through and look up the number for that particular person in the phone book. That's how that file is set up to operate. But what if I gave you their number? Whose name does that go through and apply to? You could not easily figure that out from the phone book. If it's a small town, it may only take you a couple minutes. If it's New York City, you probably can't do it at all. Whereas here, with the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, it is like the big data model. I am going through and putting the information into the platform, but it's making the relational links in the background. Every night Google goes out and crawls the database and makes relational links in the background. So I can type in a person's name, I can type in a number, and then it goes through and makes the connections between those files on its own. And that's really what the 3DEXPERIENCE platform is going to give you. So it's going to go through and be a database, not just a file-based system when you're done. So the whole idea is connect the disconnected.
Even if I don't know a whole lot of information about that item, I should be able to go into the platform, find it, and then use it on here. So they go through here and kind of highlight, what is the goal here of this, 3D Experience platform. It's to bring the disconnected together. It's a single source of truth. The information is in the 3D Experience platform, all of it, not just some of it. And then it's also easy to access. You can access it many different ways, through a web client, Windows integration, tablet, mobile. These are all possible ways that you could access then the data. And again, it's not file-based, it's going to be platform-based data, which is the main difference between them.
The next thing we want to look at is the progression on the development of the CATIA software over the years. Now, when first introduced in 1981, it was called CATIA version 1, or V1 for short. And then as new generations of the software were developed, there was a V2, a V3, and also a V4. And then in 1998, CATIA V5 was introduced. And then this was Dassault Systèmes' first fully parametric solid modeler. And this has been the industry standard for the past 15 years. And so when first introduced, it was called V5 R1. It was the first release of the software. And then as changes were made to it, there was revision 2, revision 3, and so that number would change. And that continued all the way up to R21. Now, along the way, in 2008, V6 was introduced as well. And so they had a V5 software, and they also had a V6 software they were selling at the same time. Now, it became a little bit confusing because the past releases were handled a little bit different. When CATIA made the transition from V4 to V5, it was basically a brand new software. The data model behind it was completely different. And so the data you couldn't just directly open up into V5. You had to go through and translate the information, and then when you brought it up in V5, you did lose some of the history that went along with the V4 model. And so when they gave it the name V6, it made it sound like that was the same on here, and it really wasn't true. V5 and V6 used the same data model in the background. And so beginning then in 2012, they started to go through and give it a different name. They started to call it V5-V6, and this signified then that the data basically between those two softwares were the same. And then the other thing they changed is they changed the release. Rather than just call it R22, the next release, they started to go through and call it then by the date code. And so it was 2012. And so the first release of V5-V6 was R2012. Now, back to V6. V6 was a new generation of the software, and it was basically a new interface, so it was different than V5, and it also then had the integral database in the background. So now when you were saving again, you weren't saving away a file, you were saving the data into the database. And so it was really the beginning of the platform, but it wasn't fully developed at that particular point. And so then to better represent what they were trying to accomplish, Dassault renamed the software again. So beginning in 2014, they introduced then the 3DEXPERIENCE. Now with the 3DEXPERIENCE, again, they were using really the same data modeler in the background, but it did have a new interface, so it looked different from V6 as well. Now the last release of V6 officially was R2013X. And then the first version of the 3DEXPERIENCE was R2014X. And that's been continued development until today. And so as of this recording, the most recent release of CATIA 3DEXPERIENCE is R2018X.
Now, V5 itself, it still exists, and it's going to exist for quite a while. Development on V5 is going to continue through at least 2025 under the current Dassault Systèmes schedule on here. So it's got at least 7 more years to function the way it does. Now, with that, even if the V5 development goes away, they're going to continue to support the software long into the future on here. You just won't be able to go through and get, new updated features at that particular point. And then the geometry modeler, like I mentioned earlier, the geometry modeler between V5 and the 3DEXPERIENCE is shared. So the information that you create in V5 is directly transferable into the 3DEXPERIENCE going forward. There won't be any type of conversion necessary to bring that data along. Now, compatibility. The data is compatible. It uses the same geometry modeler in the background. But there's a lot of confusion on exactly what is compatible. I've had people from Dassault Systems actually tell me the wrong information. The models from the same release can be transferred back and forth, and you can maintain the feature history. So you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, I am showing you a picture in V5. So I went through and created a really simple part in V5, V6, 2017. And of course, I've got my history tree expanded over there. There's my different features. I've got a pad, a hole, a chamfer inside the model. I can save that model away, and then I can go to the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, and I can actually import that model. And when I import that model in, as long as I'm in the same release, so over here on the right again, I'm now in the 3DEXPERIENCE release 2017X. I can bring up that model, and I've got the exact same history and tree over here. I haven't lost anything. And so the parametrics are still there. You can see I went through and modified the one pad over here on the right to go through and be shorter. Now, once I've made that change again, I could save this file away into the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. Now, if I wanted to bring that back into CATIA V5, I could. I would have to export it out of the platform into a file, and then I could now go through and re-import it back, and I could still continue to make changes here to it, as long as I'm in 2017, that particular version. So as long as the versions are same, the data can be transferred back and forth and continue to be modified. Now, as soon as the versions are different, then that's not true. If I go through and make a change in the 3DEXPERIENCE in 2018X, I can't go back then into V5, V6, 2017 and open that model anymore and maintain the history at that point. So keep in mind, the data is compatible as long as you're on the same release. And then to go through and implement the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, there's quite a few pieces to this, so it does become a lot more involved than going through and just installing CATIA V5. And so there's a couple different ways that you can go through and do it. You can actually go through and have on-premise, or there's various cloud solutions that you could go through and use. So I've kind of broken down the possibilities here on this slide. So let's talk about on-premise first. Now, with the on-premise method, basically everything is installed locally at your company. So the software itself, the database that you're using, the hardware, that's all within your company on here. And so that would be one way to go through and do it. Now, with that, though, you do have to go through and set up everything. It takes a little bit of time and effort to go through and do that. And then with the cloud solutions on the right, these offer quick implementation strategies. And there's a couple different ways. Let's talk about the far right first, the public cloud method. And with the public cloud, basically, everything is out on the web. And so there's really no software that you need to go through and install. Well, you have to install the thick client software, but you can download that right off the cloud when you need to use that part of the software. So there's really nothing you need to go through and do beforehand. You would just log into the 3DEXPERIENCE and go on here. And again, you're going to go through and use then basically the internet to go through and access the public cloud. So everything is taken care of for you in the background. Now with the private cloud, it's pretty much the exact same thing. All the information is stored out onto the cloud. You don't really have to do anything locally to make it work. But it's really just a private network now that is going through and accessing the cloud. You're not using then the internet, the public internet, to do that. And you can also come over and have the on-premise cloud. And again, with that on-premise cloud, again, you're now going to go through and have a secured link. And so again, you're going to have more stuff that you need to install locally to make this work. But, basically, the platform will be out on the cloud. Everything else will be local. So a couple different ways that you can go through and basically install this. Now, with the on-premise version of the software, you do have to go through and do a couple things. It's not like you can just stick a CD in your slot and answer OK 5 times to install the software like you could with V5. You got to have a license server. I got to have a database software. I got to have a web server to go through and make all this work. So it takes a little bit of setup. You're going to need help from your VAR to do that. Most people will not have the technical experience to be able to do that on their own. So keep that in mind. But all services are run, all the data is stored on your local hardware with that particular method. Now, when you start to get into the cloud versions, then it's a lot simpler. Very fast deployment. You could go through and set up a public cloud in 10 minutes because all that is being done in the background for you. All you really have to do is just log into the website and you're there. Now, the only thing you may need to install is a license server, and depending upon the type of cloud, you may not even need that. That may be taken care of for you as well. So it's very simple to do. And again, because it's access, it's on the cloud, it's an internet connection, you can really connect to it anywhere. And then security, that is always the big issue. Anytime you talk about the cloud, well, the data is not stored locally. But, it is stored in a data center somewhere that probably has much higher security than any company. The company that you're at probably does not have a high level of security as these data centers have on here. So that's always an issue, but I think, it's probably more secure in the cloud than it is stored locally. And then also just the reliability factor. That data is getting backed up all the time, very reliable. And that's how these companies make their money, having the systems up and running. And then another advantage of the cloud is it's very easily scalable. Maybe I start out on a project and I only have 5 users. And so, okay, now we're starting to ramp this project up. I need to go through and have 20 users now. You can easily go through and add 20 more users onto the cloud in just a matter of minutes. And then again, once you get over the hump, maybe, hey, I don't need all these users anymore. Again, you can actually go through and start to turn some of these users off. So you can go through them with the 3DEXPERIENCE, and you can actually have licenses just for a period of time, not permanent licenses that you buy. So really the cloud offers a lot of advantages, especially if you're a smaller company where you don't want to go through and invest all the time to set up the on-premise installation. And when I give my demonstration here in a minute, I'm going to go through and be using a public cloud to do that. Now, there are different data centers. Again, if you are going to go through and use one of the cloud methods, here's the various locations where the data can be stored across the world. And I'm sure there's more coming soon. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is licensing. There are some differences, and there's also some similarities between how V5 is licensed and how the 3DEXPERIENCE will be licensed. So both of the softwares are licensed by what Dassault Systèmes call trigrams. So it's really just kind of a 3-letter acronym. Now that trigram represents a product or a package of products. And so an example of a trigram is that you might see is MCE. Now MCE stands for Mechanical Product Creation Package. Now this happens to be a package in V5, and that particular package would contain the following products. So it would contain the Part Design 2 product, the Assembly Design 2, the Generator Shape Design 1, and the Functional Molded Part 1. So you can see there's then 4 products within that package. And that's going to continue into the 3DEXPERIENCE. You're still going to go through and have these different trigrams that represent the products and the packages. Now, they call them trigrams. Keep in mind, it may be more than 3 letters. Some of the trigrams do have 4 letters now as well. So that part's going to be the same. What is going to go through and be different, though, is in V5, you went through and bought a configuration of the software. In the 3DEXPERIENCE, you're going to go through and buy a role. And so here I give you an example of a V5 configuration. And this is a very common configuration that a lot of people would have back at work. So I've got CAC plus FPE plus HDX plus MCE. Now, the CAC is basically just the base PLM Express CATIA. It also may be listed as CAT on a lot of people's packages on here. So that's the base CATIA. And then on top of that, they got the FPE, which is the Fabricated Product Creation Package. So that would go through and basically for like welded products and stuff, give me choices there. There's also, again, the HDX, the Mechanical Shape Design Package, which would basically go through and give me like the different tools for going through and making surfaces and stuff inside the system. And then also the Mechanical Product Creation Package as well. So those things, inside of each of those, there's going to be different trigrams or areas that would turn on. Now, also these products are available as add-on and also shareable as well, but I promised earlier to keep it simple, so I'm not going to get into that, but basically you're buying a configuration in V5, and that will determine what you can use then inside the software. In V6, you're going to go through and basically buy a roll. And so in 2016X, there were 73 rolls. There are more rolls now, but I could not get an exact number, so I went with the 2016X number. And so again, an example of a roll would be MDG, and that's the mechanical designer roll. Now within that roll, there are actually 25 products. I didn't want to list them all out because the list would be huge, but that would actually go through and have 25 different products then, or trigrams inside. Now again, there's also going to be different roles, like hey, if I'm a surface designer, there'd be different roles for surfacing and so on as well. Now, the 3DEXPERIENCE licenses are also different in their named user. With V5, you buy so many licenses. I buy 10 licenses. And so basically, when you log in to the software, anyone can use the software. The first 10 people can access it. When person number 11 comes along, of course, it's going to come back and say, hey, no license is available. They would need to go through and wait until one of those people logged out before they could go through and use a license. So you're buying a set number of licenses. With the 3DEXPERIENCE, you're going to actually call out users. Okay, so Joe Smith is going to go through and be my mechanical designer. I'm going to go through and have, somebody else is going to go through and be my tubing designer. But you're going to actually call them out role by role, specific needs. And so it's those people then that can use that part of the software. So a little bit different thought process on going through and setting up the licenses. Now, to make it a little bit easier for the mid-market, that's where really RAND 3D concentrates on, is kind of mid-sized companies. Dassault Systèmes has gone through and developed basically 5 base roles and 7 extension roles. And so again, I give you an example of the base roles here. So you can see there's a base role here for sheet metal design. There's one for going through and doing 3D master. There's one for product enclosure. So those would be kind of the 5 base roles that you could go through and choose. And then from there, there's also going to be extension roles. So again, I could have an extension role for like a tubing designer, or I could have an extension role for electrical stuff added on top of those if I wanted to as well. I didn't list those 7 roles, but there are other ones again that you can add on top. Now, again, these 7 extension roles, they can also be add-on or shareable on top of the base role as well. So you're still going to have the trigrams, but it's now going to go through and be roles versus configurations that you bought in the past. And then the next thing I want to go through and do is just give you a quick software demonstration. How does this software look, compared to V5? And you'll see there's quite a few similarities, but there's also going to be some differences as well. So let me bring that up here real quick. So I've actually already got CATIA started here in the background just to save some time. Now again, to get into the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, I could go through and basically I have to specify a web address. And then it's going to go through and ask me to log in. And then once I log in, it would go through and bring up the 3DEXPERIENCE. Now I'm in the thick client part of the software because I'm actually in CATIA right now. And then you'll notice I do have my compass up here in the corner that I was talking about. So again, if I wanted to switch the area that I was in, again, if I come over here and hit the 3D button, that's going to go through and bring up again over here on the side, where I can now come over here and choose my different 3D modeling apps over here. Now you'll also notice on the side panel over here, I've got my different roles. Now I've got a number of different roles assigned to me, but if I wanted to go through and see, okay, when I'm under business innovation, here's the different apps that I can go through and access under business innovation. If I compress that back, if I'm over here again under mechanical designer, here's the different roles that I can go through and access as mechanical designer over here. So it will go through and kind of always give you a list kind of over here on the side of the different roles that you potentially have and then what you can access. And then you can also come down below here and set up favorites. Again, if there's apps that you use a lot, you can set them up in favorites just like you could in CATIA V5. So it makes it easy to get to them. Again, if I was to come over here to the information intelligence, now it's going to go through and show me my information intelligence apps, if I've got access to any of those on here. So that's how you go through and basically kind of navigate around to the different areas or the different products now, is through the compass on here. Now what I want to do is I want to go through and basically open, let's say first, an existing item. Now you'll notice there's no open button. Remember, we talked earlier, it's not a file-based system, it's a database driven system now with the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. So I'm going to come up above here and I'm going to use my search area. Now when I go through and search again, I could go through and type something out So if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I could come over here and say, okay, yeah, I want to look for something that has 651 in it. Over here, I could type that out and hit enter. And now it's going to go through and search through my database and try and find matches then again for 651 on here. Again, I am doing this over the web, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So you can see here's my matches, then it goes through and finds that it has 651. Now again, you notice some of these are CAD models, but not necessarily all of them are CAD models. It's really kind of all the information in the database related to that. And you can narrow this down. But I could also come over here, if I didn't know the exact name, I could come over here and just say, okay, I want to come over here and just see my content. So in this case, it'd be all the content that I've gone through and created. And you can see I've currently got 310 things, basically, in the database. And again, there are some, filters over here. How do I go through and display it? I currently have the thumbnail view turned on. But, I could come over here and switch this into a list, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to go back to the thumbnail view. And let's say I'm interested now in looking at one of these items. Okay, I want to go through and look here now at basically this trailer hitch assembly. So this is where, again, I can just go through and pick on that, hold my right mouse button down, and I can then go through and choose. Do I want to come over here and open it? Now that would open it directly in CATIA. So I can then go through and open up the model and physically modify it if I wanted to. But maybe I'm just a person that needs to view this. I would also now, with the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, get Explore possibilities. Okay, yeah, I want to explore that, but I'm not going to change it. So with Explore, I'll go through and open it up kind of on this turntable, as you see. And so again, I can still spin this around like you would normally with CATIA, but you can also just rotate the turntable by picking on the edge of it as well, and then spinning it on here. But I can also expand this out. This is that level of assembly. If I come over here and basically say, okay, well, I want to expand this, it's going to go through and expand out, and then break that down. Okay, so here's the parts that make that up. Now you'll notice I got a sub-assembly over here. That's kind of this part. If I was to come over here and expand that as well, it would further expand that out onto the turntable. So I can then kind of break this down under Explore and just kind of really view the information. And then if I decide, hey, yeah, I really want to go through and make some type of change to this, at that point now you could come over and open it. Again, if I was to come over here and compress this, that would go through and put these back together. This is not expanded out. So you get Explore options that you really didn't ever have in V5. And also in the very center of the compass, I didn't talk about this before, there is this 3D play button. If you're looking at something and you hit the 3D play button, it's really just going to go through and play through the different kind of orientations of this model to give you a better idea of what this particular item looks like. So there is a 3D play button in the center as well. And I can stop that at any time. Now, I'm finished with this. Okay, I explored this, I looked at it, don't need to see it anymore. So I'd really just come up above and then close that tab. Now, if I want to create a brand new file in the system, I got a couple different ways to do it. One is I could come over here and use my compass, and I could come down here and say, okay, I want to come down here and make a part. That would build a brand new part. Or I could just come up here above with the plus button, and I could go through and create a model that way. So I want to go through and create what they would call a 3D part. And that's going to start then a brand new model at that point. And you can see once I get the model started, I still got the 3 default datum planes. I've got my specification tree on the side as before. And then down below, the interface has changed quite a bit. I do have various tabs down below here to find the different commands. So again, if I'm over here under the Essential tab, these are kind of the essential commands inside of the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. If I come over here under Model tab, here's my main model tabs. If I come over here under Refine, that's where I'm going to go through and find like chamfers and edge fillets, those different commands. So it's really just a matter of going to the correct tab to find the command. Now, some of these things are found in multiple locations. Like if I come over here under Essentials, I'm going to come over here and find the sketch command. I would also find that here under Model as well. So let's just say I want to make a simple feature here. So again, I'm going to go through and make a sketch. So I'm just going to hit the sketch button down below, and that's going to come over here and start making my sketch. Once I've selected it, once you get into the sketcher now, you'll notice your choices are pretty much the same as you would see in V5. So maybe I just want to come over here. I'll keep this simple. I'm just going to come over and make a rectangle. So I want to make a rectangle that goes from there now, drag that out over to there. And so then once I've gone through and created my rectangle now, I want to go through and start to dimension that. So let me just shift this back here into the center. And then to go through and do that again, I can still come over here and use the buttons at the bottom, but I can also, there's a number of shortcuts that they've added into the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. If I just pick on this element, you'll notice it kind of brings up a mini toolbar here. I can just say, hey, I'm trying to create a constraint here, and that would add a dimension. And then as soon as I put that dimension up, it does give me the opportunity to change it. Okay, yeah, I want that dimension to be 115 on there. I could do the same thing over here again, pick on that entity. It brings up my mini toolbar over here. Yeah, I'm trying to make a dimension on that as well. So I can add a height dimension here real quick to do it. But, it's really essentially the exact same thing you would do in V5 as you're making the sketch. Now, to get out of this is where I need to come back over here and expand over a little bit and just say I want to exit the app. I really want to get out of the Sketcher app now, and that's going to go through and create the sketch. And then at this point, of course, I can now come down below and turn it into a pad. Now remember, the basic geometry modeler is the same. So this really looks all the same. I've got the exact same choices over here when I see more inside of that dialog box that you would see in V5. And then once you've got your depth set again, I can just go through and say OK, and that would create the pad. And of course, I can expand out my part body now to see that. Now, if you wanted to add like a hole or a round or something again, I could come down below here and just say hole. It would work essentially the same. Pick your face, and then once you picked your face again, that's going to go through and start the whole command. But once you get here, this is really identical to V5. So, going forward when you're switching, the training portion, is going to be minimal. The users that understand V5, they're going to quickly catch on to V6. And again, to store, I can just come up above here again and just say I'm ready to go through and store my model. So basically I want to come over here and just say I want to hit the save, and that would now go through and save it at that particular point. So that's kind of the new look interface that you would go through and see with the 3D experience. And then the biggest difference is, really it's just a matter when you want to go and get a new file, I'm not going to hit the open button. I'm going to really come up above here and search for the file to go through and bring that item up. But again, once I've gone through and opened up my assembly, at that particular point, everything is pretty much the same as far as assembling parts, modifying things as it was in the past. Okay, so to finish off, let's come back here and just talk about a couple things. So I want to bring my slides back up here really quickly. We looked at the quick software demonstration here. And then again, as a summary, really the 3D experience is really just an evolution of CATIA V5 from being a file-based storage format to being a data-based format. And again, being in that database format just gives you much more access. All the other apps can easily access this information, make changes to it directly, and I don't go through and create those various different kind of silos of information that you might have if you've got some type of file-based system on here. And then the RAN 3D industry focus. We do focus kind of on the aerospace and defense, industrial equipment, high tech, and then also transportation and mobility. So those are kind of our focus as a company. So if you have questions outside of that, we may be able to answer those questions, but also, we may have to point you in another direction to get those questions answered. But we can, if you outside of those areas but still have questions, feel free to contact us and we will step you through and find somebody who can answer those questions if we can't. And I just want to go through and talk a little bit about our brand offerings ourselves as a company. So we go through and really deal with just these brands. So CATIA, Delmia, Anovia, Exalead, Simula, and also the 3D Via Composer products. Those are the brands then that we concentrate on as a company. And then for training classes, we do a lot of training on the software. So again, we've got V5 classes, we've got 3D experience classes. Again, we listed the classes that we offer. Now we've got a lot of public classes for V5. When you start to get into the 3D experience training classes, companies are just starting to switch, and so we don't have a lot of public classes listed, but if you're interested in any type of 3D experience training, just contact one of your brand 3D sales reps, and they'll be glad to help you out and point out the classes that are available too, and we can set something up if there's nothing on the schedule. And then for more information about anything I've talked about today, again, training solutions, software solutions, consulting solutions, feel free to contact us. Again, at ran3d.com or at training.ran.com or at the phone number below. All those will work. So I'd like to thank everyone for being on the webcast today.